Welcome to another episode of Live at 5. And we're just saying behind the studio here, and you're welcome to join us at any time behind the studio by going to Zoom at 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 694-348-057. And you too can be here with us in the studio. And in the studio, we're just saying, 5 o'clock is a time for cocktails. So grab your cocktails. Let's make a l'chaim and let's call it a day together. That's what Live at 5 was really envisioned about. You get to the end of the day. Hopefully, when we get to the end of this pandemic and we're going to be having a l'chaim. Let me tell you, time for a drink, right? So the end of the day, let's have a drink. Let's have some herring today. I have a special guest on the show, which is going to be herring. That's my special guest. We'll talk about what happened to my special guest in a moment. But I hope you all are doing well and having had an okay day. And if you're not totally zoomed out and you're here with us, that's great. And if you're watching us on YouTube, wonderful. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that we can continue to provide you with the best of 5 p.m. end of day live edutainment. Do you know that's what my industry is? I'm in the edutainment industry. It's the confluence of entertainment and education, because these days, if it ain't entertaining, it just ain't happening. So we know how that is. So but really it's about education. But it's more than that. It's more inspiration, education, and entertainment. Which one of those comes first? Sometimes I'm not so sure myself. But whatever they are, whichever one, it should be with l'chaims. And if you're at home, I'm not. Enjoy. I won't look. Turn your camera off and pour yourself a drink, okay? Because it's 5 p.m. Now So I was going to have a guest today on the show, and I was very excited, and hopefully my guest will come next week. But things happen. Things just happen. And you know what? If it's one thing we've learned from this pandemic world that we're experiencing, it's how to be flexible, because you never know, right? Somebody's gonna get some country's gonna close its borders. Israel's gonna close its airport. Person's gonna come down with symptoms and not be able to not be allowed to come. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Country's going to open up. Country's going to close down. We have no idea. We've learned to be flexible, because if we haven't learned that, what exactly have we learned? One thing that we've learned in our family through this pandemic is to enjoy herring, which I mentioned a minute ago. I want to talk about herring again. Is that so? Since shuls, the synagogues couldn't make kiddush in the traditional way, so I started making one at home. We would after Saturday morning, Shabbos mornings, we have a family kiddush at home, and it includes herring. I've been a herring fan for a long time. It's not a new thing for me. But I will tell you, there was pretty much not anybody else in my family that liked herring. But they've all learned to embrace herring. You have to count your blessings. What are our positive takeaways from the pandemic? So for us, it's been herring, and there's some amazing herrings. And if we were having Shimshon Rubin on the show today, if he had been able to make it, he would tell us about his herring, because he makes the most amazing herring. And I'll tell you where you can get it, and it's fantastic. Peppered matches. Anyway, we'll talk about that when he does come, God willing, on the show next week. I don't want to blow a good herring conversation here, but we will certainly get back to that. Herring has really become a major win. I think that for what it's worth, it's good. Every time we think that this pandemic is almost over, I think it's a great time to reflect and say, what were the positive takeaways from this pandemic? In all of life, we go through hard things, and we experience stuff, and we hopefully grow. And that growth, you don't always, the old saying, they say, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want, right? That's called experience. Well, we had an experience. How'd it go? Well, it was an experience. That means it didn't go well, but you know what? We grew from it. It was an experience. And so this is the Jewish experience. It's about growthful things from, and you don't know, it's not stuff you would necessarily ask for. No one asks to go through a challenging time in life. We don't ask to be tested. When King David said to God, test me because I'm your man, it was a mistake. And just by asking for the test, he had already failed. We don't ask for tests. The only test that I like is the test my wife asked me to perform on a tray of brownies on Friday afternoons, But other than that, I don't like tests. Nobody likes tests. We don't like difficulties, but we grow from them and we gain. And sometimes it's good in going through a hard moment, a hard spot, a hard period of life, which we're all going through, unquestionably. You have to understand what are the positives? What are we taking away from this? Um, I was talking to a woman today on the phone, and I said, "So how are you?" We hadn't spoken in a while. A neighbor, haven't seen each other in a while. We live across the street from each other, and I said, "How you doing?" And she said, "Well, the kids are in school, so at least that's okay." So I thought, yeah, that is a good thing because it could be worse, right? It could always be worse. The kids could be at home on top of each other. That would be even worse. But the impression she was giving was this part could be worse and everything else is worse. It was clear. That's what she meant. She was like, this is the one thing that's not as bad as it could be. And you read, in context, it was everything else is bad. And that's the norm. We're going through a hard time. And anybody who's not going through a hard time, if you could give me a call and tell me how you did that, I'll give you my number because it's a hard time. Even here in the Live at 5 studio, see, look, all these red lights here. These are all over the world. These are hard times, and they're all over. We're keeping track of them on the board back here. I have a system, and it's hard now. So every time I think it's almost over, it's it. I remember when we started this show back in it was actually March of last year. It was right before Purim, just basically a year ago, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, we'll do the show for a couple of weeks. People will be in quarantine and they'll be done. They'll come out of it, and then it'll be fun. We'll see each other again. That'll be that. And every month or so, I thought, okay, it's over now. The summer's come, the weather's good, it's done. Okay, we got over a big boost, and now the vaccine is out. Now it's going to be over, and we were talking about making a bat mitzvah celebration for her daughter in February of next year. And, should we be confident, hopeful, gently optimistic, concerned about that being in person? How do we feel? What's going to be? I have no idea. And I've stopped. I'm not making any predictions whatsoever. But every time I think it's over, I think, okay, well, at the very least, before it's all over, I've got to remember what were the positives? What did I gain here? How did I grow from this experience, and how is my life better? And that is it, and that's a very Jewish perspective on suffering, and tragedy and difficulties, because who knows better than we do about that stuff? We have the history to back it up. If nothing else, we know how to deal with difficult things, and not only to persevere, but to look inwardly and to strive to grow from difficult things. That's what we do. That's a Jewish perspective. Nobody asks for difficult things. Quite the opposite. We learn to keep our heads up, held up high, though, to laugh and to grow from it. So we're going to get our special guest back on the show, God willing, next week. We'll talk herring, and we're being flexible, and hope you're having a flexible day. And how's that cocktail? Now, on to the next topic. I wanted to talk a little bit about today, because we have such a whopper of a parsha. We mentioned it a little bit yesterday. It's hard not to talk about it. I've always got one sort of one finger on the page of the weekly parsha. This is the way it goes. That's the way we live. Whatever is going on in life, whatever we're thinking about or talking about, it's always right there in the parsha. And this week's parsha is when the Torah was given, and you're reading in the Torah about the Torah being given. I mean, that's got to be a highlight, right? That's a highlight. It's like saying, here it comes. Here it is. This is the book. You're reading the book, and this is the gift of the book, the day of the book. It's big. And not only that, but when we talk about the Torah is given, we're really talking more than anything about the 10 Commandments. If we think about the scroll of the Torah, and if I say the Torah, usually the word Torah is followed by the word scroll. Torah scroll, right? It's a whole book, 5 books of Moses. It's a whole scroll. We have them and keep them in a holy special safe ark. What is an ark anyway? A box, a closet. It's really a closet. In Hebrew, it's just a holy closet. The same word for ark in modern Hebrew is the word for closet. So these are the closets, and these are the holy closets. This one has my shirt in it. This one has a Torah in it. But it's a closet. So, but this is the holy closet, and we keep the scroll in there. That scroll, that Torah, that's not what we're talking about. That Torah did not arrive in Jewish hands in this week's parsha. But yeah, we call it the parsha, the event of the giving of the Torah. It's kind of somewhat confusing, and maybe we'll tease that out a little bit. And then we want to talk about the mitzvah of the week, because of course it's the 10 commandments, and the word commandments does mean it's mitzvahs, and it's a little confusing. And we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so that's today. That's today's topic. Now, when we if I would ask you where and when it took place that the Jewish people got the scroll, the Torah scroll. Let's talk about that. Where and when did we get that? What day of the year was it? I would have to think about what that day. It's not automatically clear to me what day of the year that was. You'd think that'd be something we'd know, right? I don't know. But basically, when I could tell you, it at the end of the 40 years, at the end of Moses' life. I assume that it was in the last period of his life. We talked about it, that the last period of his life was in between the first of the month of Shvat to the 7th of the month of Adar. It's about 5 weeks time. That's when 36 days. That's when he passed. And sometime in there, he delivered to the Jewish people not one, not two, but 12, 13 copies of the Torah. One he didn't give to them. He put in that ark. Remember that holy ark, that closet we were talking about? He put one copy right in there in the ark, the original ark, as in Raiders of the Lost. And then he gave the other 12 copies into the hands of the 12 tribes. So each tribe got a copy. By the time Moses left the Jewish people and he died and went to heaven, he gave us 13 copies, one of which was in that ark, and the other 12 were in the hands of the tribes. 12 copies. Everybody got a copy. But that didn't happen right after they got out of Egypt. That was at the end of the 40 years. A lot of the stuff that's in the scroll is detailing narrative that took place over those 40 years. Can you imagine what it would be like if they already knew if it was about to happen, because they already had the book in their hand and it said, hey, do you know what's going to happen? We're going to make a mistake over here. There's going to be a cosmic error happening in a couple minutes. Maybe they would just avoid it, right? They didn't have the book in their hands in advance of their mistakes. The final words are written. The finishing touches are put on it, and is completed right at the end of Moses' life. And he gives it to them, and he finishes all the copies, delivers it to them, and that's the end of his life, and he dies. What happened at the beginning of the 40 years when the Jewish people just got out of Egypt and they got to Mount Sinai? We celebrate the giving of the Torah, but we don't mean the Torah scroll. That's what I want to clarify. What was given at the giving of the Torah? Okay, that'll be the first topic for today. The actual story basically includes a couple of pieces. Number one, the Jewish people assemble around the mountain, Mount Sinai, and it's a very powerful experience, extremely powerful. You have thunder and lightning. There's loud sounds, and it's literally described as terrifying. The powerful event, the presence of God is going to make its greatest appearance in the world in ever. And that's powerful. It's even scary powerful. And there's a back and forth where God says to Moses, go talk to the people and tell them what's coming. And there's a back and forth there. And then eventually the entirety of the Jewish people, man, women, and child, will hear God say the 10 commandments. They're the voice of God, the VOG. Okay, the voice of God. Now, I abbreviate that because if you in the theater industry and the event industry, they actually use this acronym VOG to mean voice of God. And anytime that you have the faceless voice that booms out in the event that says, please take your seats, or something like that, or the program will now begin. You don't see anyone speaking, but you just hear this faceless voice. In the theater industry, in the event industry, entertainment industry, they call it the VOG. And they mean the voice of God. This is not a joke. Some parts of the show are a joke. This is actually not a joke. That is the real thing. I remember the first time I learned that, we were making an event, and the event planner was telling me, okay, so VOG says, take your seats. And I'm like, VOG, what's that? And she's voice of God. I'm like, oh, great. You're going to get the voice of God called up here. That's great. And she told me, no, that just means the faceless voice. So it comes directly from Mount Sinai, I suppose. We're talking about hearing the voice without seeing the face. There is no face of God. You can't see God's face, but there is a voice. And the Jewish people in entirety, every single one of them, without exception, man, woman, and child, they're all there. They're all present. They're all arrayed around Mount Sinai, and they all heard the 10 Commandments said to us, the Jewish people. And that's that's part of the let's say that's the content of the giving of the Torah. It's not the whole scroll. It's not the 5 books of Moses. It's just the 10 Commandments, not the 10 suggestions, the 10 Commandments. Now the question is really, well, what is that? The 10 Commandments, what is that? Is that a whole religion? Is that the whole kit and caboodle? Does it somehow encapsulate the whole Torah? Is it, what is it? Are these the chapter headings? What are these 10 statements, these 10 mitzvahs, 10 things anyway? What are they? Why are they? There was a custom that they, for a period of time of Jewish history that is mentioned in the Talmud, that every day, twice a day, as part of our daily recitation of the Shema, we would say also the 10 Commandments. So you know that? There was a time way back, that every day, morning and evening, not only would we say Shema, but in that, along with the Shema, we would say the 10 Commandments. In fact, there's another custom, which is some have this custom, some not. There are critics of this custom, I believe, traditionally, that in synagogues over that ark, that holy ark, that there is a representation of the 10 Commandments, and some are critical of that because there is the possibility that one would mistakenly think that the 10 Commandments are somehow the most important. They're the biggies, right? Aren't these the biggies? I mean, that's the 10. If I'm doing those, aren't I doing pretty good? Come on. Those are the ones that really count, right? That's why they're the 10 Commandments. Is that there's a temptation to think that way. And the more that we emphasize them, the more likely one is to make that mistake. And so they were taken out of the daily recitation of Shema, and we don't say them that way anymore. And the Shema doesn't contain the 10 Commandments because we don't want to overemphasize them. We don't want anyone to think, well, that's pretty much the whole kit and caboodle, and the rest is just sort of like, extra credit. God forbid. That's not true. We don't want people to think that. The real discussion is what are these 10? What relationship do they bear to the whole? When we say the whole, we mean the larger body of mitzvahs, which number 613, right? So if you can contrast, a smaller number like 10 or so to the 613, obviously some tiny percentage. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. What are these to the whole? And there are different opinions, but frankly, I think the most rudimentary, the most basic explanation of that is these are just a down payment. They're just examples. God says, look, I'm going to give you some. I'm going to give you a little taste. I'm going to give you a little something. And this really gets to the sort of the more important part of the concept of the giving of the Torah, which is, again, arguably the most important instant and moment, the most important event in all of human and certainly Jewish history, the giving of the Torah. And what really are we talking about? It wasn't the giving of the Torah scroll. So it's the giving of some examples, just giving a down payment. Is that really, it takes away the sense of importance of it. The real importance is that what happened over there is when God says to Moses, "Go down and tell the Jewish people what I'm about to do. I'm about to give them the Torah and get their response." And their response and our response, our reaction is, God, nasa v'nishma. You know what? We'll do it and we'll study it. And they said it in that order. And so when we talk about the giving of the Torah, what we're really talking about is this is the deal that was made. This is the relationship which is formed. So, for example, let's say, for example, that that a husband and wife stand under the chuppah and they commit to one another. They don't necessarily know what all is involved. I mean, they have no idea. They don't know where life will take them. They don't know what's going to be. They don't know what they're going to grow up and be, and what their family life's going to be like, or what the world's going to look like. They have no idea. They really don't know. They're committing nonetheless. They're committing to something greater, which they may have a taste, they may have a sense, but they don't know what really is all involved. Can a wife, can a husband say to down the road, this is not exactly what I didn't commit to this, and therefore I must not be married. I think I must be married under protest. This is not the real thing. So it's not what I expected, and therefore it's non-binding and it's retroactively, annulled. We don't say that. We could obviously they could get divorced, they could change up from here on in, but they can't go back and say, there was no deal here. The deal didn't include this because they commit to everything, whatever it'll be, it'll be. It's a commitment. And that's really what the giving of the Torah is. The Torah in the way of our thinking of our sages is a little like a wedding ring. Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai. It was like a wedding. And we're like the bride and God's like the groom. And the Torah, he doesn't give us, it's not like a library book. It's a wedding ring. And what it does is it forges the relationship. And the relationship doesn't have to have all the details in it because it's not like a contract where, I have to see the fine print. And if I find something in there that I didn't, that doesn't work, then I, it's not binding. It's not like that. The wedding, it's a relationship. And the relationship has twists and turns and it'll have whatever it is. And when the Jewish people responded, they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we're going to do it and we're going to study it in that order, that amazing order. They said, we commit to it, even though we don't know all what's in it. We don't know the rest. You're giving us some small percentage. We're getting a taste. We're getting a little teeny 5% taste. And you know what? That's fine. That's all we need. That's all we need because it's not even 5%. It's a small number. It's it's a teeny, it's even a smaller percent. We don't need to know because that's not the point. The point is we're opting into the relationship. And the relationship is what the giving of the Torah is about, is giving a ring, launching a relationship, and we're opting in. That's really what's going on over there. And the and the 10 commandments as we think of them are that example of that little bit. Take this and it's like a ring. The ring is not, what is a ring in a wedding after all? It's a symbolic token gift to say, look, I'm giving you everything. I'm all in. I'm not handing you everything under the chuppah, but here's a little down payment. Here's a little taste. Here's what it's going to be like. I'm giving you this ring and there's more to come. You don't know what it is? That's okay. You don't need to know. It's coming. There's more to come. And that's what the giving of the Torah is really about. And the 10 commandments, they're not comprehensive. You're not going to find everything in Jewish life represented there. And they're not even the most important things. There's more important, one could argue, there's more important stuff than that in there, out there. And there are more important things. You could make that argument. And so therefore we don't want to overemphasize them. It is certainly not true that, if you get that, you got it all. There's a lot more. That's not at all. The rest is not extra credit. It's as important as these things. And again, I will pause and parenthetically add, as I always like to, Judaism is not all or nothing. It's an important principle to remember. Judaism is absolutely not all or nothing. It's more and more and more and more. The better we do, the better we've done. But it's not all or nothing. But neither are the 10 commandments all. They're not at all. That's my point. So that's a little bit of a preface. Let's just take a one teeny step further and talk about the 10 commandments. Then what is this sort of first taste and this down payment that we get on on the Torah, on the mitzvahs? The list of them is much bigger, but these 10 are somehow meaningful. And the first thing you have to know is that the 10 commandments are not really 10 commandments. Oy vey. Okay, I'm really going out on a limb here. The 10 commandments are really 14. Now that might sound crazy. And you're thinking like, Rabbi, what are you, like some sort of a maverick? You some sort of what are you telling me here? I always heard 10 commandments. You want me to change it to 14? No. Okay, calm down. The 10 commandments, and enjoy your cocktail. Yeah, right. Keep calm and enjoy Live at 5. That's what I should say. I'm not going crazy here. The 10 commandments in Hebrew do not translate as 10 commandments. The way the name 10 in Hebrew, these are referred to as the Aseres Hadibros, the 10 statements, the 10 sayings, the 10 things that God said. They're basically 10 statements that they are. But the word they're not the Aseres HaMitzvos. So if you know a little bit of Hebrew, you know the word commandment is mitzvah. These are not called the Aseres HaMitzvos. They're not called that ever. They're called the Aseres Hadibros, the 10 statements. 10 sentences. They're not quite 10 sentences, but they're 10 statements. Okay, that's the best thing I get. Like Devar. You know, a Devar Torah is like a word of Torah, talk of Torah, 10 talks, 10, the 10 TED Talks. No, let's not say that. Never mind. The 10 statements. Okay. And within them, if you drill down and you look at them, you'll see that in fact, 14 of the 613 commandments are contained in them. 14 mitzvahs. That means that in some of them are, if you of those in those 10 statements, some of them break down into more than one actual commandment. They contain more than one. So for example, the statement number 2 basically is, thou shalt have no other gods besides me. Now, that's a very basic rendition of it. There are many, many more words, and it also includes not making idols at all, and not worshiping idols in a variety of different ways. And frankly, in the count of the 613 mitzvahs, that makes up more than just the one. It makes up several. It's actually several mitzvahs. And so in the 10 statements, so we shouldn't call it the 10 commandments. It's really not. It's a misnomer. It's a bad translation. In the 10 statements, there are actually 14 commandments. Okay, now you understand? So that's what that really means. Now I wanted to point out that I'll share this one last thought with you about them. They are on 2 tablets. You have 10 statements on 2 tablets, 5 and 5. Okay. And the general thought about them is that if you look at the two lists of 5, the first list of 5, 1 through 5, seems like it's a list of commandments that has to do with the way I relate directly to God. I have to, number 1, I'm the Lord your God, so I have to believe in God. Number 2, I have to not have any other gods. Number 3, I have to not take God's name in vain, etc. And then if you look at the latter 5, 6 through 10, it seems to be the kind of the way that I interact and relate to other human beings. So it says, don't commit murder, don't commit adultery, etc., etc. And those are things that have to do with the way I, treat other people well. So there is a basic understanding of sort of the division of tablet 1 and tablet 2, 1 through 5, 6 through 10. That is, these are the mitzvahs, the commandments that govern, some mitzvahs, not but some, governing how I relate to God, and these govern how I relate to other people. And I'll just share this beautiful thought that I saw in one of the more modern commentaries of the 19th and 20th centuries. That if you look at the number of words on tablets 1 through 5, there's a ton more words, long sentences, a lot of words. Of the latter 5, several of them are only 2 words long, and there's very few words. So if you think about 2 equal-sized tablets with these wordy 5 and these very brief 5, what you realize is that these latter 5 with very few words are written in a big font, as opposed to the other ones, which are written in a little font. And so why are they written in a big font? Because these are the ones that are so much more. It's like when somebody texts you in all capital letters, it's like they're shouting at you. This is God saying, take this stuff seriously, the way that you treat other people. Even if you're not treating me the way that I would like, treat other people the way that I would like you to. Beautiful idea based on the font of the 10 Commandments. Unbelievable. That's a meaningful thought for you. I hope it's been a good show. I'm sorry we didn't have our guest. I know he would have liked to have been here had he been able. He's well, thank God. Don't worry, that's not the problem. So we'll have Shimshon on our show and God willing next week. We do have Dr. Mike Malowski on our show on Thursday. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, healthy and holy, and we'll see you tomorrow on Live at 5.